Hello, Bear Science followers. Today, we're going to dive into the pervasive carbon footprint narrative you see everywhere. While companies are busy promoting ads that urge you to drive electric, change your home lighting, recycle your plastics, conserve water, take the train instead of flying, walk more, and even track your daily steps to collect carbon credits, there's a much larger carbon footprint behind it all, one belonging to enormous corporations like BP. Let's peel back the layers of this absurdity and see what's really behind the term carbon footprint. You might think that the term carbon footprint was coined by climate scientists or environmental activists, but that's not the full story. In reality, this concept has been strategically popularized by the fossil fuel giants. Consider that while you're being told to cut your carbon footprint by driving less, turning off lights, or walking more, companies like BP have a carbon footprint that's hundreds of thousands of times larger than yours. Essentially, they use these campaigns to shift the blame for climate change onto individuals, while their own massive emissions go unchallenged. Carbon footprint refers to the total greenhouse gas emissions, mainly carbon dioxide and methane, produced by a person or organization's activities. For instance, driving a car emits these gases directly, while even using your smartphone indirectly contributes when electricity is generated to charge it. All these emissions are converted into a common unit and summed up to calculate the total carbon footprint. Studies over the past century have shown that the accumulation of these gases in our atmosphere is directly linked to the 1.1 degrees Celsius increase in Earth's average temperature since 1800. To measure an individual or organization's carbon footprint, various factors are considered. For a person, it's about how you heat your home, the type of light bulbs you use, the energy consumption of appliances like your TV or washing machine, your mode of transportation, including the age, engine capacity, and maintenance of your vehicle, and even the amount of plastic or metal waste you generate. For companies or governments, the calculation is split into 3 scopes. Scope 1 covers direct emissions from owned or controlled sources. Scope 2 includes emissions from purchased energy used for heating or cooling. And Scope 3 accounts for all other indirect emissions, such as those from products, services, employee travel, and waste disposal. Globally, human activities produce over 37 billion tons of carbon dioxide each year, and this accumulated greenhouse gas is responsible for the 1.1 degree Celsius warming observed since the 1800s. But here's the catch. Not everyone is equally responsible. For example, if you divide the total emissions of a country like Turkey, where the aggregate emissions are enormous, by the population, the average per capita carbon footprint might be around 5.1 tons. In contrast, countries like Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, and Kuwait see per capita footprints between 25 and 38 tons, while an average American produces about 15.3 tons, a Chinese about 8 tons, and Europeans around 11.5 tons. Even within these numbers, a significant portion, around 55%, of the emissions come from corporations and governments, with individuals only responsible for roughly 35%. Now, let's talk about how this narrative is spun. Advertisements promoting carbon footprint reduction are not just simple public service messages. They are part of a massive public relations campaign masterminded by fossil fuel giants like BP, Shell, Saudi Aramco, and ExxonMobil. In 2005, BP launched an ad campaign that asked everyday people, "How big is your carbon footprint?" The ads featured ordinary individuals, subtly shifting the blame for climate change onto consumers, while obscuring the far greater emissions of these mega corporations. Even though we're encouraged to reduce our personal footprint by making greener choices, like opting for public transit, installing solar panels, or consuming less. The truth is that a minimal level of emissions is inevitable as long as we exist. Every breath we take, every piece of technology we use, even the production of our bicycles, has a carbon cost. In reality, even if you manage to reduce your individual footprint by, say, 30%, that reduction would be minuscule compared to the emissions from large corporations. The point here isn't to tell you not to care about your carbon footprint. It's to show you that the narrative has been skewed. The term carbon footprint has been weaponized by giant corporations to divert attention from their own enormous contributions to climate change. For example, while an average individual might be responsible for a relatively small fraction of total emissions, just 100 companies might be accountable for 60% of all carbon emissions over the last 30 years. This isn't just about individual responsibility, it's about corporate accountability and state policies. Many Western governments use this metric to pressure developing countries by imposing carbon limits that don't reflect the true disparity in emissions. While you can make small personal changes, like rethinking family planning, using public transport instead of driving, or installing energy-efficient systems, the burden should not fall solely on you. In reality, the true drivers of climate change are the massive fossil fuel industries, whose sole purpose is to enrich their shareholders, not to protect our planet. We must demand that these companies take genuine responsibility rather than shifting the blame onto individual consumers. In conclusion, while the term carbon footprint is widely used, it has been co-opted as a tool to mask the true scale of emissions from giant corporations. The data shows that even if you manage to reduce your personal footprint, the overall impact on the climate will be negligible if corporate emissions remain unchecked. For more in-depth discussions and real solutions, subscribe to our channel. And remember, real change requires holding the big players accountable, not just tweaking our daily habits.